Before we get to the content, smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, subscribe, and turn my notifications on for a chance to win a PlayStation 5. And we're also doing multiple PlayStation 5 giveaways on Twitter and Instagram as well. Now that we got all of that out of the way, break! Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody, guys? I was in the middle of watching the Bills-Titans game. Yes, I did see Derrick Henry stuff the living crap out of Josh Norman, but I took a little break because we got some breaking news. So earlier today, if you guys were watching on my channel and had my noties on, you'd know that the New York Jets were doing whatever it takes to potentially trade Le'Veon Bell. And well, we just got ourselves another update. According to Adam Schefter, the New York Jets have officially released Le'Veon Bell. Now, that didn't take very long, did it? The next thing the Jets should do is fire Adam Gase. Like, please fire Adam Gase. He clearly doesn't know what he's doing. But before I go on my little Adam Gase rant, we need to dive in deeper and give you the full details of this story. So according to Schefter, the Jets tried to trade Le'Veon Bell for weeks, dating back to last year's trade deadline. There were no takers. Tonight they released him, and Bell is now a free agent. Now, here's the thing that drives me nuts. How are you trying to trade a running back that you literally signed in the previous offseason? Literally, that's about like an 8 to 10 week gap from signing a player to attempting to trade that player. How inept does your franchise have to be in order to make such a colossal mistake? Now, the numbers are also in according to Schefter and Spot Track. I feel like I said that wrong, but according to Spot Track, Le'Veon Bell's release leaves behind a $15 million cap hold in 2020 and another $14 million in 2021 to the Jets. Le'Veon Bell earned $28 million across 18 games played for the Jets. And by the way, the return on that investment was just absolutely horrific. Le'Veon Bell averaged 3.6 yards per carry this year and 3.2 yards per carry the year prior. But you have to admit that Le'Veon Bell definitely finessed the living crap out of the New York Jets. And of course he did. The New York Jets definitely deserved to get finessed after what they did in bringing him in, especially when they had no game plan once they did bring him in. You don't just bring in a running back and say, okay, you're talented and you did well in Pittsburgh, replicate that same thing for us, especially when he's requesting pass catching situations that you're not willing to give to him. Now, Le'Veon Bell did tweet in response to this situation, and it appears as though he's very, very happy to be out of New York. And I don't blame him, man, because he still has some good football left in him that he could take elsewhere to a good culture and a good franchise. And I'm sure that after this experience with the New York Jets, who have been by far the biggest football dumpster fire over the past decade, he is finally going to value a good, stable front office and a good, stable organization that is devoted to winning football games that'll put him on a track to succeed. I want you to understand how inept the New York Jets are. This is a franchise that literally did anything they possibly could to tarnish Le'Veon Bell's name the moment he joined the Jets. Adam Gase literally paid the media to write negative press about Le'Veon Bell just so he could be justified in not using him as much. I don't get the rationale in that, especially when you're trying to trade said player. Because if you're trying to trade a player, you should be doing your absolute best to hype up his stock. Like in my previous video, I used an example of Stephon Diggs having his best career year with the Minnesota Vikings before the Minnesota Vikings decided to trade him to Buffalo. And bear in mind, Stephon Diggs demanded a trade for like a year and a half prior to finally getting traded, but the Minnesota Vikings didn't relent. The Vikings stood pat, waited for the right opportunity and the right deal, and they waited for a loaded wide receiver class so they could get a good return out of him. And what ended up happening? Well, the Vikings were able to trade Stephon Diggs for a myriad of picks, and one of the picks was Justin Jefferson. So at the end of the day, the Minnesota Vikings were able to replace the production that Stephon Diggs gave them and also do it for a fraction of the cost while also bringing in additional assets. But that's not what the New York Jets did. They tried for weeks and weeks and weeks to find a suitor, but guess what? When you're talking crap about your own halfback and you're making your own halfback look bad, and you overpaid said halfback to be on your roster, no one's going to try to trade for that halfback. It doesn't matter how good Le'Veon Bell was 4 years ago. It doesn't matter. You ruined his stock. Now, if you remember, I told you about a few weeks ago, there's this report from Adam Gase saying that Le'Veon Bell just had a hamstring injury. He had some hamstring tightness, and for that reason, he was not going to be playing for the Jets. I accused Adam Gase of lying, and I guess we were right, because I knew Adam Gase was doing whatever it took to potentially force Le'Veon Bell out of the New York Jets. But what does this end up accomplishing for the Jets at the end? Nothing. Now they have even less talent on the roster. Adam Gase could use his former running back Frank Gore currently in his multiple attempts to do halfback dives on 1st and 2nd and 10. And just as we all assumed, the New York Jets are screwed. Now, in my previous video, when I assumed that Le'Veon Bell was potentially going to get traded, I said the most common and most likely team that would even bite on such a contract would be the Arizona Cardinals because they could afford it. But now that he's a free agent, there are a lot of suitors that pop up to mind. The Chicago Bears is a good option. The New England Patriots would happily take a division rival's running back and just throw it back at the Jets' face multiple times just to place an emphasis on how much the New York Jets misused Le'Veon Bell. The Arizona Cardinals could definitely use another running back because Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing in Arizona either. But also you could look at the New York Giants, the Washington Reds, the Washington football team, the Houston Texans, and even the Buffalo Bills to potentially seek out Le'Veon Bell's help. But if I'm Le'Veon Bell, I'm going to be looking for a team that has the most promising offensive line to potentially create the greatest situation for me to succeed because he's going to have to hit the open market again this offseason. So let me know in the comment section down below, where do you think Le'Veon Bell is going to end up signing? This could go a myriad of different ways, guys. He could go to the Philadelphia Eagles and join that rushing attack they have going there. Hell, he could even go to the San Francisco 49ers, who definitely could use some running back depth with all the craziness that's been happening to their rushing attack. Now, New York Jets, please don't mess this up. You have an opportunity to fire Adam Gase and potentially give someone else in your front office an opportunity to prove themselves and potentially resurrect Sam Darnold's career. They have Jamison Crowder already. They have Denzel Mims, who's very promising as well. I feel like this team definitely could make moves and could definitely make a dent this season in terms of changing the culture that they have. I know they're probably not going to make it to the playoffs, but if you look at the Miami Dolphins last year, they didn't just bend over and quit. They did whatever it took to establish a brand new culture underneath Brian Flores, and they're reaping the benefits this year. Yeah, they're not a contending team this year, but people respect the Miami Dolphins. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you subscribe because we're going to be covering a lot of Le'Veon Bell news on this channel. I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.